Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to briefly go over version 6.8 of Gems of War. So this whole patch can basically be summarized in one new mechanic, the Wandering Merchant system. So this ends up bringing in a system where in Delves and Explore, you will have a 15% chance of triggering a new event. This only occurs on non-boss battles. So for example, in Explore, this only occurs on the first 4 battles. It does not occur on the mini-boss, the boss, nor either the 2 mimics. And for Underworld, for when doing Delves, this only applies to every room except for the very last room of the boss, meaning that you have 8 possible rooms within a Delve, and basically 4 when going through a cycle of Explore. The best way to end up finding these is to simply just spam low-level Explore, as you would pretty much with any other gnome or any other mechanic that you want to just cycle through battles very quickly, and this will maximize the number that you can end up seeing. The low-level Delves, if you're running like a Delve at level 20 or 50, can also end up working pretty decently for this, but you definitely don't want to do this on like Explore 12 or a high-level Delve, while you can still do those pieces of content, of course. It will be slower for trying to find this new mechanic. So basically, one of 4 things will end up occurring when this mechanic ends up occurring, 2 of which are useful, 2 of which are not. The Merchant and Angel definitely being the more useful ones, as they are both resource-based. The Merchant will give you 2 offers, as we can actually end up seeing right here. And these offers can be pretty good. As far as the gold ones, some of the better ones I've seen so far is gem keys. 4 gem keys for 9,000 gold, I believe it was. Super, super good value. One other one that you can end up getting there that is pretty decent if you end up needing it is the pet food, particularly the color pet food, not the white one. You can get 10 of it for only 2,500 gold, so if you're still at a point where you need pet food, really good deal for that. You can end up getting writs this way. I believe it's 20,000 for 100, which is basically any one deed of choice for only 100, so you could obviously put that into purple. And speaking of which, deeds are super cheap now, at least compared to before. You can now get a deed book for only 2,500 gems, which is still a very sizable amount of gems. However, this is way cheaper than the higher cost before, as you could end up spending as high as about 7,500 gems if you were to have gotten all of the deeds before without using any of the 10% or 25% off. So it was really, really high before and is basically about 3 times cheaper now. So it is definitely worthwhile. Of course, purple and green deeds being the 2 most enticing ones, mostly because they can be associated to magic-based kingdoms in order to go and upgrade them, particularly purple due to the fact that there are 4 of them. 4 magic-based kingdoms that can benefit from it. But yeah, there's a lot of pretty good ones in there. Nisha you can end up getting for 500 gems. I'll probably have a full video just going over all of them once there's a full list, but at this current moment in time, I don't think we have like a full comprehensive list. But definitely keep an eye out for these, as there's a lot of pretty good offers here. You can kind of tell by looking at them for the most part which ones are kind of the better ones or not. Like treasure maps, obviously, don't get, and a few others like that. All the underworld treasure is also completely useless. But yeah, this is one of the offers that you can end up getting. The other one that is particularly useful is the Angel. This is basically just free loot. There's quite a few good ones on this. You can just get diamonds. I got a double Anu earlier. And basically just free loot. You just take the better one of the 2. Sometimes it's a little bit ambiguous as to which one is better, and other times it is extremely obvious between the 2 choices that ends up giving you which one will end up being the better choice. These aren't particularly common. They are the rarest of them and do occur at the rarest rate, as it ends up mentioning here. However, they are always just free loot, and they are always worth taking and just grabbing really quick, whatever one happens to be the better one. There are 2 other ones that also exist, the Daemon and the Genie. These are simply just buffs. Basically, the way that the Genie works is you will have a 75% chance to get a buff and a 25% chance to get a debuff. So you're basically gambling on having a high chance of gaining a benefit or a very small chance of getting something that will be bad. This is only really particularly useful if you're going to be doing high-level delves, where if you feel like you might want an additional buff, you could try gambling on it and have the 75% chance to get whatever buff it shows, or you can simply still skip it. All of these are skippable, so you can simply just skip them if you don't end up wanting them. But the Genie and Daemon, they're basically only going to be useful for high-level delves. If you're doing level 500 Pure Faction, and you happen to be able to get a little bit of an extra buff, or you're doing just trying to go through the delve, and you feel like you might want to take the buff, just to make it a little bit easier. But those are pretty much the only situations. In most other situations, like Explore, you're just going to be skipping them every single time, as they're essentially just a time waste. Daemon is pretty similar, except it gives you both the buff and the debuff. So you have a guaranteed chance of getting the buff, but you also have to deal with whatever the negative effect is. This you can already kind of determine preemptively, unlike Genie, in that you already know what the negative effect is going to be that you're going to be getting. So if the positive benefit outweighs the negative effect, you can end up taking it. Otherwise, just end up skipping it. So for the most part, you want to always check the merchants and the angels. and you almost always want to skip the genies and the daemons unless you're doing high level delves and feel like you need the extra assistance. One big downside, or kind of upside and downside of this, is of course there is an extra amount of time when the window pop-ups. You have to waste a few seconds every single time it does, even if you're just spam clicking to cancel out of them. This does mean that it'll be slower to end up farming various things. One thing that is mentioned here is that it will not occur during a Nomopalooza. So for example, this is referring to the 15 minutes of time when you use four verses to end up doing a Palooza. For that 15-minute duration, or however many you used for that entire duration, but generally that 15-minute duration, you will not end up getting any of these encounters. So that will be nice, to make sure that the time for that doesn't really get in the way. However, this is still a slight nerf to Nomopalooza, in that even though this event does not occur during it, what it does occur during is when you're farming for verses. So when you're just spamming low-level Explore, you're trying to get verses, you're trying to get gnomes, mostly verses. Whenever you're trying to do this, particularly during a Vault event weekend, when you have a higher rate for all of these things, these encounters will waste quite a bit of time. If you're running with a team that's running like 4 wins per minute or 6 wins per minute or something similar, you can almost expect maybe like at least like a several second reduction compared to how you would be, because you're likely going to find at least one of the merchants in that time that's going to waste at least 2 seconds. If it's like one that you actually want to see, like the actual merchant itself, and check what the rewards are, you're probably wasting like an extra 5 seconds. You might waste a little bit extra time when you're actually doing the angel as well, and even though the loot's pretty good for that, you're still going to waste time going through that menu. So it can still get in the way of a Nomopalooza, just indirectly rather than directly. But anyways, that's the main new feature. They did end up tweaking a couple things with like some new tutorials. We'll be getting some new troops for that on Monday, but we'll go over that on next week's Monday when we cover the weekly video. They added some new achievements, but they're pretty straightforward. You just have to find the merchant 10 times, the daemon 5 times, and the angel 1 time. Oddly enough, there's none for the genie. Poor genie. But yeah, the genie didn't get an achievement. They only had like 2 to 3 every patch, and I guess he didn't make the cut. Even though they added 4 of them, he didn't quite make it. They did some bug fixes. I'm pretty sure they added more bugs than they actually fixed. But yeah, that's the new mechanic. And yeah, it is really good to be getting these deeds. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be going for it almost every single time I end up seeing them, as it is actually viable to get deed books now. I'm not sure if I have an offer for it today. I'll go check. But to put it in perspective, oh no, I don't have one. I did yesterday. But to put it into perspective, of course, as you guys probably know, the very overpriced deeds that are normally here were at minimum 3 times as much. And this was mostly because it was bloated with 60,000 gold, I believe it was. So you always had to pay a lot of gems extra because it was bloated by the extra gold that was in it. The event key is actually a good example of this. For example, an event key normally costs 13.5 gems, 15 at most, if you were to buy them. 13.5 comes from buying them 50 at a time. However, as you can see, this is way more than 13.5 or 15. This is because it's bloated by gold, and that's an issue that a lot of these offers have, is that gold. Oh wait, come on, click, there we go, gold. And does this one have gold? This one doesn't have gold, but it has souls. But all of these are bloated with resources you don't necessarily need. Because if you're buying this, you're buying it for the event key. If you're buying this, you're buying it for the metal. You shouldn't buy either of these two, don't do that. Shouldn't buy any of these 3. However, if you were to be getting these, you're doing it for the loot, not for the side loot. You're not doing this for the gold, you're not doing that for the souls. One really nice thing about this traveling merchant mechanic is that it completely gets rid of those. It just simply gives you the resource directly, so the cost is drastically less than you would normally be getting it through other means, like for example the daily offers. So I would say that's probably one of the nicest things about it. Overall, I kind of like it. It is going to get in the way of like the game flow, but it kind of breaks up the tedium of explore grind. So honestly, I kind of like it for the most part. There's a little bit of extra event in there, kind of like when you get a random gnome or something. Though unlike a random gnome that generally doesn't slow you down unless it's a really bulky one, this one does. So I would kind of do wish there was like a way to toggle it on or off. I feel like I would normally keep it on, but there are definitely some situations where you just don't kind of want to see them, and there's currently no way to toggle off the option. If they add one in the future, who knows, maybe. Hopefully they will. But I feel like even if they did, I would keep it on for the most part, unless it's a Vault weekend, in which case it's definitely being turned off. But anyways, guys, that's a rundown on version 6.8. The full patch notes will be in the description below if you want to read any more of it. We also covered it pretty extensively on a stream last night, if you haven't already caught that. Anyways, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful week. I hope you find many of the angels for all the free loot going into the future, as, yeah, they're literally just free loot whenever you find them in Explore or Delves. And I will catch you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.